I spoke to Lyndon a long time ago now, before the potential fixtures in March of this year, and we discussed a lot of things. Lyndon was very honest. He had obviously had a chance to go and play for Australia as well. We had a good chat, a good honest chat. He gave me his thoughts, I gave him my thoughts on what would be best for him, and thankfully he's named in the squad.
Did he have any reservations about it? Obviously his sister's a Commonwealth Games gold medalist for Australia. How much pressure was he getting from the other side, do you think?
I would imagine he would be getting the same conversation from Graham Arnold as he was getting from me. I didn't put any pressure on him, I wasn't pushing. I think it was very important for Lyndon to make the decision that he wanted to make. Obviously we can give him little ideas and we can say what it's going to be like if he comes into the Scotland camp, and I'm just glad that he's come down on our side.
And he's obviously had a big move as well in the last week or so. What do you think that's going to do for him as a player?
Well, I think if you look at Lyndon, he's always stepped up in his career. You know, he did well. He went into Queen of the South as quite a young man and worked well there. Caught a lot of attention. I think Livingston stole a march on everybody, to be honest. They got him signed up in the January, did really well to get him. And he stepped up again, and people will be looking at him to step up again now that he's gone into the English Championship. I think it's a good move from a good club. I think Mark Warburton is a good coach for him, should help him to develop. And I think the lad himself has got a really good attitude, and he wants to get better and better. And hopefully he continues to make the progress and steps up to international level as well.
This is the first squad that you've been able to select. Kieran Tierney, who obviously played very well when football resumed back in the summer. Have you spoken to him, and how excited is he about joining up finally?
Yeah, I also met Kieran in March before the games were cancelled, obviously. We had a good conversation, chat. Very honest, at that time Kieran was still recovering from his injuries, but was starting to get through the other side. He didn't have the best of starts at Arsenal injury wise, but he did okay when he got in the team, broke in the team, made a lot of people sit up and take notice that he's a good player, but we knew that anyway. I think everyone who's watched Kieran develop over the years at Celtic knew that he would handle the step up to the English Premier League, and that's what he's done. And then obviously I contacted him again a few weeks ago just to congratulate him on winning the FA Cup, even though it was against my old club, which I wasn't very happy about. And also told him that he's really lucky that he's won an FA Cup medal in his first season. It took me 10 years down there to win an FA Cup, so now he's in a good place, and it'll be great to have him in the squad.
And you know, we've always talked about how he and Andy fit into the team together, but that's a great problem, I guess, for you to have in some.
Absolutely. You want as many good players as you can in your squad, and certainly Kieran will make the squad better.
There's a couple of players who I know you would have liked to have picked who aren't in the squad. Can you talk about Ryan Fraser first of all? Obviously he's not got a club, so presumably that was a decision that was pretty straightforward. What have you said to him?
I haven't actually spoken to Ryan yet. Obviously I was waiting for him getting a club. He hasn't got himself a club yet. He contacted one of the medical staff and said that his fitness wouldn't be acceptable for a match of this level, so Ryan's not selected this time.
And Stephen Naismith, Hearts have barely returned to training. Was there a consideration?
Yeah, I think it's a difficult one with Stephen, and obviously Craig Gordon's gone there as well with the intention of trying to force his way back into the international squad. I could have picked them, but they're both very, very experienced players who, if they had to come into the next squad, will be ready to come in whenever. It's not as if they're young and they need to come in and learn the ropes about international football. They've got lots and lots of caps between them, and I've got no worries. If I need to pick either of those two in the future, then no big issue.
Steve, obviously these games come before the Premier League season gets underway. Is there any concern about just the lack of match action that the guys will have had recently, the guys that are based down south?
Not really. I think by and large it's a little bit different from my time in the game, and when close season was close season and you had 6 weeks off and you didn't do anything and you came back in a terrible shape and it took you 3 or 4 or 5 weeks to get back into shape. I think the modern footballer now pretty much looks after themselves. I spoke to Andy Robertson yesterday, and Andy said he had 16 days off 17 days off and just rested. And I think that's the case for most of the English players, and they're probably only having 3 weeks maximum, and then they're back in training. So I don't think their fitness will be too much an issue.
And Robbie, before he first got for him, what was he making his progress so far?
Yeah, I think he's gone out wherever he's gone. I think from a young age he's been out at some of the lower clubs. The first took my notice really when he was at Morton. I thought he did well there. Obviously stepped up to Livingston last year, had a good second half of the season. He's gone back to Livingston again this year. Look, I've got some really good options in goal. I've got David Marshall, who's been the number one for me. John McLaughlin's gone to Rangers and got himself in the team there. A few clean sheets and good performances. Not having watched the games, not having an awful lot to do in the games, but showing good concentration and good awareness. Craig Gordon I've touched on if I needed Craig, and he's back in the Hearts team and playing week in, week out as he can play, then there's another option. But at some stage you have to look towards the future a little bit. And obviously Ross is one of our younger goalkeepers. Liam Kelly wasn't in the QPR team at the end of last season. Craig McGilvery lost his place in the Portsmouth team, so it just seemed like an ideal time to bring young Robbie in and have a look at him.
Steve, obviously it's a little bit odd that we're talking about a competition when in terms of the Nations League that when the last season hasn't yet finished yet, but in terms of that maybe being a real benefit to you with the playoff being so important coming after a couple of games, I guess you'll welcome that, will you?
I think it was just common sense really that you wouldn't go into a game in the magnitude of the playoffs for the Euro 2020s as your first international back after such a difficult period with no games and a lot of uncertainty. So I think the fact that we've got 2 games to get back on, hopefully back onto winning ways. Don't forget we're 3 games undefeated. We finished the last campaign reasonably well, and I think it's important for us to try and keep that momentum. So these games are really important.
Can I take you back to Lyndon Dykes? Can you maybe just put a bit more meat in the bones in terms of what specifically you hope he'll bring to this squad?
I hope he'll bring his talent, his enthusiasm, his ability to bring other players into the game, and he's got an eye for a goal as well. So I think he can. The way I've set up the team to play before, I think if he plays a lone striker, Lyndon's he's a good worker up there. He occupies the central defenders, and hopefully that would bring in to play the attacking midfield players that we've got in the team.
Presumably you're keen to get him in a Scotland jersey as soon as, so that he can't change his mind. Are you 100% confident that he is here?
I don't think it's a case of trying to rush someone into to cap them so as they can't do anything else. It's about doing the right thing. You come into the squad, you work with the squad. I have to say we're talking quite a lot about Lyndon Dykes here. We're overlooking a little bit Ollie McBurney, who had a fantastic season, first season in the English Premier League with Sheffield United, who had a great season, and Ollie was a big player for them. I watched a lot of his games and he did very, very well. He hasn't quite hit that level yet with the national team, but sometimes it takes a little bit longer just to find your level with the national team. So yeah, it's great to have Lyndon on board, but let's not forget the other players that we've got there as well.
Do you think Ollie is maybe a bit underrated? He seems to get a bit of stick up here sometimes.
I don't really read about the sticker that players are getting. I look at players, I judge them on my own eyes. I judge them on their merits. I look at what he did, and I thought he did well last season for Sheffield United. And if he can transfer that form into the international stage, then he'll be a big player for Scotland now and in the future as well. Because he's not an old player.
How much are you personally looking forward to get back into football? Because I feel you've probably been away from it longer than most.
It's been a long time since last November. It's been a long time. Listen, there's been lots of things going on and been very strange and uncertain times. So I'm not going to sit here and cry about having to sit out the game for a little while. It's been nice. It was nice when the English leagues got back up and running. I could watch games on television, keep an eye on the players. You start to get a little buzz. You want to get back on the training pitch, and obviously with the Scottish game starting as well, you just get. I could feel the September getting a little bit closer. This camp coming up, so looking forward to being back on the training pitch. Looking forward to being among a group of men again, rather than just one or two individuals. No disrespect to my wife, but it's maybe time to get back out and have a good couple of weeks with the lads and hopefully a few good results.
What did you do to keep yourself occupied through that period that long?
Oh, I painted a lot of fencing, painted a lot of garden sheds, and I don't have that much grass. I've actually got quite a lot of artificial turf, but I managed to sweep that and keep it clean. And you just keep yourself busy, you know. There was a time, so at the start when you're not too sure whether the games are going to be on or off, where you're still working, you're still on, but listen, through the summer months, just switch off, spend a little bit of time. I managed, as we started coming out of lockdown, spending a little bit more time with my grandchildren, whose numbers went from 1 to 3 during the lockdown, which is fantastic. So we've had some good times, but now is back to work.
Steve, you spoke about having chats with a few of the players in this time as well. How important was that for you to make sure you stay connected with members of the squad?
I think it's important to keep in touch with one or two key members. I don't think everybody in the squad wants me phoning them up and butting into their life and whatever. You know, the international scene is different. You know, the players have the club environment, they have their own families to get on with, and that's the main part of their life. All I try to do is when they come into camp, they know what they're going to get, they know what to expect. Hopefully they haven't forgotten the standards and the principles and how we expect them to behave around camp. And it's important to speak to one or two of them. Most of them will come into the camp, we'll see each other on Sunday night and we'll crack on from there.
There has been some suggestions that some clubs might be reluctant to release players for international duty because of quarantine rules. I know it doesn't affect Scotland this time around, but is that a concern going forward?
Well, no, it didn't affect us. It probably did a little bit. The two boys in America, Morgan and Johnny Russell. We could have brought them over, but with the quarantine issues, it would have been a little bit unfair on the players and the clubs to do it. That's not to say that I won't do it next time. If I need the players in the squad, I will do it. You're always going to have the uncertainty. You don't know who's going to. Hopefully nobody will catch the virus next, but maybe someone will catch the virus and then that will affect something else, or maybe it'll be something else will come up in one of the other countries. Which you never know what's going to happen now. It's a very unpredictable time. We have to be ready to adapt. We're lucky that in camp we'll have Dr. John McLean, who's been involved in the process right from the start. Doc will keep us right. Graham Jones has been working ever so hard in recent weeks to make sure that when we go into camp, it's going to be as safe and secure as you can make it in these times.
Is there any part of you at all that is worried about the travelling aspect at all?
No, I wouldn't say worried. I don't think. I think you have to get to the stage where you have to rely on yourself. I think everyone just has to rely on themselves to be as safe and secure as possible. You know, it's not something that goes around in your mind. You're going to have to travel. We'll travel on a private charter. I mean, listen, I flew up here for this press conference, and the airports are very, very different. They're very quiet, very secure. You don't feel as though you're under threat or anything. They're so quiet. It's actually quite scary to see.
I think the SFA had originally targeted this Israel game to try and get a limited number of fans back in Hampden. We know that's not going to happen now. Is there a tinge of disappointment maybe that it's going to be back in front of an empty Hampden?
It's going to be different. The good thing is that all the players will be used to it. It'll be a different event for me because it'll be the first time that I've taken charge of a team behind closed doors, if you like, for such important games. But I'm sure I'll adapt. I'm sure I'll get on with it, and it would be great to have the fans there. Obviously, everyone knows what I think or what we think of the Tartan Army. They're a great following. If we could get some in for October, it would be great. But listen, we'll be guided by government, UEFA, all the officials. They're doing the best they can in difficult times to make the right decisions.